if you've ever practiced yoga or martial arts or had some experience with meditation or even shamanism, you'll have the awareness that a lot of these practices from around the world are about connecting to our energy and moving that energy and being aware of how that energy flows, especially in the body and in the mind. And in these various traditions, these processes of moving energy are essentially to get us to come back into a state of natural harmony, and that a lot of the problems that we're having are just, I mean, they are because of disharmony and because of whether that's and something that's been put on us, or it's an internal thing that we're just like moving through in terms of some sort of ignorance or delusion, or letting go of these beliefs that no longer serve us, that may have served us at some point, and that these practices oftentimes are highly physical, or in some way they have at least a physical component to them, regardless of how subtle. So even with some of the most refined practices of meditation, where you're completely still, a lot of it is still tuning into the breath and tuning into the subtle energy or the subtle movement of the energy through the spine and through the nervous system. And so, on the far end of the spectrum, you can say, like, we have the physical expression of like Bruce Lee doing martial arts, and how he was able to tap into these like super like beyond normal human levels of physical power, packed into such like a powerful, like just like compact little body. And then we have the less physical of the meditation, and at the same time all of it is about moving energy. And I really enjoy like the hands and being able to move energy with the hands. It's a very Italian thing in me. And so it just, when we have our hands and we have the awareness of the hands are connected through the arms straight directly to the heart, we're able to move a lot of energy with the hands. And so just connecting to your hands, whether it's with the prayer palms or some sort of chi energy practice where you're feeling the energy in your hands, whether you're moving your arms just to get blood flow and more breath going in your heart and in your lungs, the hands are a simple way to start moving that energy. And it doesn't have to be like, you're starting with a specific set of practices if that's not what you're into. But if you are, I highly recommend exploring and finding what works for you. And if you do find something that works for you, stick to that, because that's something that is just like meant for you in that moment, if not for a longer period of time or maybe your whole life. And so these practices are there for us. They've been developed for thousands of years in some cases, and like Tai Chi or yoga, like these things have been around for a really long time, and they're continuing to evolve. And in fact, like a lot of those practices to this day are different than they were thousands of years ago. And at the same time, through this process of not just physical culture, but the spiritual development behind that culture, and the people that have really given the most and have accomplished the most, have understood that a lot of this is just about us connecting back to our different systems in our body and how we can bring them all into harmony. So like in yoga, a really simple concept is you have like these 3 layers. There's you could say there's many different layers depending on who you ask, and what we're talking about here. But in simple parlance, you have the physical body, the mental or the astral body, and then the spiritual body. And that these 3 bodies, the physical, the astral, and the causal, the physical, maybe you'd say emotional, and then mental body, depending on how you define it. Either way, it's kind of it's obvious in some ways. You're like, yeah, like I have emotions and I also have thoughts and I also have a physical body, and there's a way of connecting them. And that's, say, what a lot of these practices are about. Like Hatha yoga literally is just about aligning the sun and the moon. Ha means sun and tha means moon, and being able to tune into these energies within ourselves is very powerful, and we can really benefit a lot from them, and being able to incorporate them in our lives in a way that feels natural, or in a way that feels like we're owning it, like it's our practice rather than someone's forcing us to do it, and like we're able to actually really feel something. It obviously, the more everything grows with practice, so over time the better you get at something, the more joy, or I don't know, I feel like there's a certain level of connection between discipline and then skill and then enjoyment, right? And being able to cultivate that over time takes practice, and at the same time, the more that we give each day to our practice, the more we'll be able to enjoy that over the long term. And so it's I feel like in this stage of our evolution and of time, is there's so many things available to us in terms of practices that, there's this scientist, a behavioral scientist at Stanford called BJ Fogg, and he wrote this book called Tiny Habits, and it's just about integrating habits into our lives. And he says, it's hard to integrate more than 3 habits into our life. So if you are looking at these things, like focus on doing one thing at a time before, bouncing around all these other things and trying to bring them all into your life. It's back to the Bruce Lee thing, the man who's mastered, one punch 10,000 times is going to be better than the one who has all his practice scattered all over the place. So being able to focus on one thing or a couple things that work really well for you and practicing those regularly is going to be of a lot more benefit than just trying 1,000 different things. But at the same time, having the exposure to those things often is sometimes for some people what it takes to get to that one thing that works. So in sharing the things that work for me, I wish to streamline that process for you, and at the same time, I wish for you to explore. So find what works for you and balance your energy. Okay. Namaste. Peace.